I've been taking watercolor class for a year now. I've spent over $1,000 in-person classes, and I don't even have one painting that I like. Actually, that's not entirely true. In my most recent class, I did like this little cat that we made, and in my very first class, I made this butterfly painting. So let's talk about whether it's worth it or not to take in-person classes, considering how expensive and how time intensive they are. My name is Helen, and I am what I like to call a confident beginner when it comes to watercolor. I've been doing it for a year now, and I've taken 3 classes by 3 different instructors. And I'm going to tell you my experiences doing that and whether I think I could have just gotten away with just following YouTube tutorials instead. So I'd like to say that I think in-person classes are actually valuable if you have the time and you have the money, and maybe not for the reasons you think. I think what I really got out of them was a commitment to myself, and spending the money means you're going to show up and you're going to carve out that time. And not only that, you may find that if you're a work from home mom like myself, when you're actually off at class, people do take that quite seriously as an endeavor that you're committed to. So it's not like someone's going to come and interrupt you and ask you a question about dinner because you're just physically not home. I think there's something to be said for actually committing to a class. People know that you're there. And if you have a supportive family, they're going to be happy that you're fulfilling something that you've always wanted to do. The other part that I think is really excellent about in-person classes is the chance to just be around other like-minded people. It is just a very chill, civilized way to spend an hour and a half. That has typically been the length of my regular classes. Other people. It's only been women in the classes I've had so far, but we've all gelled. We never became good friends, but there's always a light amount of banter. And it's just like many other social activities. It gets you out of the house and it gets you out of your own head a little bit. And I think for that, it is worth it, time, interest, and money permitting, of course, because they're not cheap. And so that's the other thing. Do I think they're worth it on a financial level? Well, teachers have to get paid. There's overhead to run the business of the actual lessons. So I don't think at an average price of $350 in a major city where I live, which is Toronto, Ontario, and given that the sessions were, I think, 8 classes each, 6 to 8 classes each, the price kind of varies. I don't think that was unreasonable personally. But overall, did I hugely level up my skills in the classes? Taken 3 classes, and that has been over $1,000. I'm going to say it was 1,100 Canadian dollars. Prices, of course, may vary depending on where you live, how much classes cost, etc. Could I have learned the skills that I garnered? For example, this cat, could I have learned that without actually going to class? And the answer is yes, absolutely. I think, in fact, self-teaching and self-learning has given me more space to develop my understanding of color theory, which is kind of addressed usually in classes, but it's not art school where you're there full time, so you're just kind of quickly going over it. But to develop my understanding of how to mix colors, even water control, all these nuances of watercolor, even what supplies, I've been getting mixed answers from my different art instructors, like even going through a lot of different videos and sort of zeroing in on the supplies I want has been so helpful to do that on YouTube rather than just blanket listening to all the things that my instructors say, because some of them want you to get this set of brushes, some of them want you to get that one. Ultimately, what you have to do, I think, is what works for you in terms of what you want to learn long-term, do long-term, and also the type of art that really appeals to you. So for me, it's been much more valuable to use YouTube to really zero in on, I like to make flowers. So what are the good brushes for using flowers? What's the size you need? So no, I don't think it's worth it. If it's strictly just skills you want to pick up, I think that you'll pick them up on YouTube, maybe even better than you do in person. But I don't want to take away the value of having an instructor, because I've had all kinds of little questions that you can't really get addressed on YouTube that your instructor will just tell you. It just saves so much time, and you can get an in-person demonstration on the spot, and that doesn't happen when you're just watching YouTube. Okay, so the other thing I want to come clean about is that I've been going to all of these watercolor lessons with a very, very close friend of mine, and it's been such a chance for us to just catch up every week, hang out with each other, chill, laugh, learn some new skills, and it's just really, really good quality time that I think is not quite the same as like just going out to lunch. It's just a really fun thing to do with somebody else. So on a social and socializing level, it's just been like A+. On a skills learning level, minute by minute, I'm definitely getting more out of watching different YouTube tutorials. The other great resource, maybe even aside from the YouTube tutorials, because I'm guessing you watch a lot of YouTube because you're watching this, but getting books from artists that I admire has been actually super, super helpful in, teaching me these little things that you don't even pick up. Like, I don't know how to describe it. I learn very well from books, so maybe that's part of it as well. And so definitely my learning language is reading. And so when I just read little tips, they sink into my brain so much better. Like I can watch 5 YouTube videos, but I might not remember it as well. But when I read, like Payne's Gray is good for XYZ, or spritz the paper with this to get this kind of look, I will remember that so much better if I have read it. That said, in terms of actual brush technique, and when you're getting really into nitty-gritty about techniques, it's just so much easier to watch somebody and you get these close-ups of people's hands, and you don't get that in an in-person class, to be completely honest. Especially the way that watercolor is. What I've noticed in the 3 classes I've taken anyway, is that the instructor will be doing it like this. So you can either gather around your instructor and watch what they're doing, but they're not really going to be doing it in such a way that you can see it, right? They're not going to be painting like this because watercolor drips, obviously. So they're not going to be, they're doing it down. So you can't always see exactly what they're doing. So sometimes you feel a bit lost when you're in person, because the classes I've taken anyway didn't have any kind of like overhead projector situation or anything like that. Whereas on YouTube, most YouTube creators know that they need to get a good overhead shot of their brush strokes. So if you're someone who's needing to follow stroke by stroke, you know, YouTube's where it's at. Not only that, in-person classes I think are a place to begin, but you really need to spend the time to develop the skills no matter what on your own. Like if you just take the classes, it's not enough. It's sort of like when I used to take cello, you know, I used to play the cello when I was in grade school. And our teacher would always be harping on us that you have to take the cello home and practice on it. You're not going to get a lot better unless you're practicing a lot at home. And so watercolor is much the same way. It is not something you're just going to easily and readily pick up in 8 lessons, I don't think. You need to really reinforce that. Make bad paintings, make better paintings, find styles you like. Learn how to mix colors. Most of this work, I think, needs to be done on your own. You just don't have enough time in a classroom setting. Not that you should have homework, but if you really want to level up, I don't think that's really going to happen in class. That has to happen with your own experimentation and at home. And aren't we lucky that we live in a time where there's just so many tutorials available to us, so much online learning, pretty much any style you want to pursue. You can find a YouTube video for that. The thing I have noticed though about watercolor versus other types of art world stuff, for instance, embroidery, I spent a lot of time doing embroidery as well, is that embroidery I needed very little instruction. It's such a great practice to just pick up if you just need something kind of simple and you know how to sew a little bit by hand. You don't need to be an expert level. Like I really picked up those embroidery skills. I think I maxed out at about a month on different stitches. Like I got pretty good at the stitches because I have a lifelong background of doing some hand sewing. Watercolor is just, I think, going to be a lifelong learning experience. I don't think I'll ever master everything there is to know about this wonderful medium. Notoriously difficult. You've been working for such a long time. There's people that work in oil and they say how hard watercolor is. So it presents a perpetual challenge, which I think is kind of a nice thing. So I don't think I'm ever going to stop watching YouTube tutorials or trying to develop my style. I'm dabbling a bit into oil as well. And so that has been interesting. Let me show you what I've been working on. Working on this cherry, which comes from a tutorial. If I remember to do so, I will link up where I got the tutorial for this. And the problem with oil is, unlike watercolor, which is dry, you know, within an hour, this has to cure and it stays oily, oily for a very long time. So I thought that doing watercolor was a slow practice. It isn't. Like if you want the ultimate slow practice, really check out oil painting. And if you want something even slower that really forces you to slow down, embroidery is the way to go. It takes so long to do even like a small patch of embroidery. It's incredible. So yes, I think watercolor class in person can be wonderful, very enriching, really cordons off that space in your life to develop a skill. And because you paid for it, you'll find people are not going to try and infringe on it, right? You have watercolor class, people leave you alone. From an actual skill level, I still think that YouTube is a really, really helpful adjunct. Maybe the number one thing that you need to get going, at least. You're never going to get a really good critique from your YouTube creators. You can get that a bit more when you're in person, but you know, in an adult learning setting, you're not going to find that they come down too hard on you. If that's something you're really looking for, like someone to really, really dissect, the 3 instructors I have are reluctant, I think, to give you really negative or the like constructive criticism. They'll give it to you, but they're not going to serve it to you cold. They're going to be really light about it because it's supposed to be fun, right? This is, again, not art school. This is adult learning. It's 100% elective, and it's a good chunk of money that we're spending. So you want to come away from the class feeling like you won, and I think that they know that, and you know, they treat you accordingly. That's been my experience anyway. Maybe if you want someone to really, you know, help you level up by giving you like real critique, I would say maybe private instruction or something like that might be better, or maybe a university course if you're allowed to take that. I really don't know. That's the honest truth. But if you're looking for like university level feedback, That's not what you're paying for, and that's not what you're getting in these kind of creative classes. All right, I hope that was helpful. Maybe help you make a decision as to whether you should take a class in person or not, or maybe not. It really the video wasn't really necessarily about that. It was just to sort of detail some of my experiences in case it helps any of you. If you're watching to this point, thank you so much. Please do consider leaving me a like and subscribing. I would really appreciate that. And I hope to see you around. I have some other videos about art supplies. I hope you'll check them out. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.